Hello everybody. Apologize for the delays. Glad to have you all on for the Oblivione Flash Ops stream. You know, we're already smack dab in the middle of map number 3, believe it or not. Tied at 1 apiece, so Oblivione, they will be in blue, SrPeakCheck in red. A little bit scuffed today, but we have all of the information on the stream here for you to go ahead and look at. So, looking already, new Junk City map number, or round number 1, excuse me. Blizzard already out from SrPeakCheck. Hottie has been having a hard time getting this Junker Queen cooking on in, just especially with this May and what we've seen Vistola do on this Ramattra. We're going to keep looking at this for the next fight coming on up. I apologize, my feed is incredibly grainy and I cannot read a single thing on my screen, unfortunately. So we're going very macro-based for the gameplay so far, but that will be map number 1, round number 1, excuse me, captured by SrPeakCheck. They're going to look to rotate down to our second point. Again, Oblivione, they've been struggling to stay together in these fights. When you look at SrPeakCheck, what they do, they drive a Maywall in between the squad, allow Vistola to get in on this Ramattra. The Nemesis Forn has been absolutely devastating to Oblivione anytime that they've managed to get into these fights. So they're going to look for this early initiation, Kitsune Rush in the back pocket. Not gonna have the Sojourn though to help back that one up. So EXO, they need to decide now whether they push it or they just back off. It seems they're gonna take a bit more of a passive route, not opting for the 4v5 at this time. And honestly, that's a pretty good decision considering the ultimate advantage that they have. They want to give themselves the best chance of claiming the one good fight that they will be able to take here. Now, all of the tools in their control. It just is going to come down to this execution. Can they get around Vistola in this ultimate here? The Salmier coming on out, an instant clap onto Ghost 9 and Gala. Support line has been knocked out from under them. SrPeakCheck, they're going to have a hard time stabilizing. Vistola sent it to the backline too, and that's an immediate trade out for another 2. 3v3, Oblivione. Yes, they're in control of the point. Not stably just yet. Vistola still alive, managing to squeak out of danger, at least for now, going for a full reset of their team. And the nice thing about that for EXO especially is that they didn't have to use a whole lot there. It was really just kind of that sound barrier to get yourself in on the engage. You trade that out for the Annihilation, and now you can hold on to things such as this Dragon Blade for our next little battle coming on out. But it does matter if Hottie can survive. The commanding shout had to be popped so early, and it's on Kepster to make up for that lost time. That's Immort down. The supports on SrPeakCheck doing an excellent job keeping each other alive. And yes, while it worked in the long run, there was no support remaining for the remainder of their squad, allowing EXO to swoop back on in and clean it up. 74% and counting. SrPeakCheck. Another touch is possible, but looking highly unlikely.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate there, Tidy. The stagger out there on Phi is going to make things very difficult for SrPeakCheck to be able to get back into the action. So we're probably going to see things tied up here as we leave the refinery and start making our way over to the docks for our next matchup right now. Unfortunately, due to our observer getting sick, we're only getting one POV, folks. So unfortunately, our alt tracking is not the best because we're used to seeing it on screen. But I would imagine that we're probably going to be seeing a couple on either side. Probably going to be seeing our tank ultimates like Hottie's Rampage coming up soon. And that first pick is going to start things off well.
Yeah, Party already able to get in on the Junker Queen. Has been nice with these dives when he's been able to land them, which SrPeakCheck have done an amazing job playing around the Junker Queen so far. Getting that early pickoff, much needed. EXO able to set themselves up here on the point of ducks, and we'll get that percentage up taking. Now, they need to be careful about what they're going to do on this next fight. It's happened time and time again where a Maywall comes up, they get divided, and it's just divide and conquer for SrPeakCheck like that one now. That's an instant icicle to the dome of Shockwave. So now they're going to be the ones rotating down to the objective. Hottie is on the high ground. That's commanding shout used, and there's nothing that he can do except for run away.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they actually separated out the way that they did. I kind of understand the direction that Hottie was wanting to go, you know, see if they can earn up that rampage, go behind the team, but you still had a full 40% to go. That's definitely one of those moments where you got to kind of take the enemy team head on and be able to draw that line in the sand. But as they go ahead and surpass the percentage right now, Hottie and the rest of Oblivione are looking for any way to get back into this action.
But, like, that's so hard, though, right? They keep getting hit with these icicles from Fi. Sauna pops the overclock in the back. Shockwave gets no value out of his, and they just have to back off before a fight realistically even gets to take place. And this has been a reoccurring problem so far on this map.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's really just coming down to positioning and the speed of play that's really kind of making things difficult for the way that Oblivione is kind of engaging on objectives. Getting the rest of the team together, that's the way to go. A little bit of a rotation on the outside as Fi gets taken down.
There you go. That's problem number 1 out the window. They gotta focus on attacking that high ground. Kevster is focused on clearing that objective out, but you know what's great at doing that? An annihilation. Vestola swooping in from above. Has to be chunked down immediately. Target number 1. Shockwave getting the couple of elims that Oblivione really needed to keep this objective alive for themselves. And they're gonna look to get the swap back on over, but are gonna have a full task ahead to win the next 2 fights.
Beautiful work there from Shockwave, really just kind of tracking the heads as they were going around. Even with the annihilation on point, there was so much healing being pumped out from the members of Oblivione that it was just so difficult for anyone from SrPeakCheck to be able to sustain as they were kind of trickling into the point. It's going to be a coordinated strike that is going to take this back as we head into last fight territory.
Be one more fight, and if I've been tracking my ultimates correctly, we're gonna have quite a few to look at, particularly this Blizzard from Fi, and that one has to be scary. It is on Sky right now to have that Suzu at the ready, not let this ultimate go off. Here it is, but it's used so far back, whether that was a mistake or not. It is one that Oblivione are gonna be so happy with because the touch doesn't even come in. That's now a 2-1 lead on this Flashpoint map, and EXO, they're gonna push this advantage. SrPeakCheck have essentially given them a good old early Christmas present, and they're gonna run away with it.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter if they get eliminated at this point in time, because anyone that ends up in the spawn is going to be so much closer to Bomb Flats, which is going to be our next objective, that, you know, you're losing no time by actually dying. So, we're going to Junkyard, it seems. But nevertheless, like, you're still going to be way closer by going back to spawn than you would running across the map, even with the Lucio speed boost. And Oblivione already have the point on lock.
Yeah, they're gonna have point locked down. SrPeakCheck now have to push into them, and you're looking at Fanny Astro with the sound barrier here. EXO, they've used it aggressively in the past, but knowing what SrPeakCheck, they're gonna be packing in the back, you need to be moving early. Don't let them use that window at all. Fanny Astro deep into the back lines, looking for the support. Can't get it. Vestola's peel is incredible to be able to work with. Sano catches one off on the flank, so EXO's early aggression, it's gonna get them a little bit closer. Full support salt's now out for SrPeakCheck. That's gonna be enough to turn the table, push them over the top here. The 50% is what EXO's gonna have to be happy with.
Yeah, I mean, that at least gets you 2 fights here to be able to re-engage on the objective, be able to take it back into your control. We see Kevster here with the blade getting ready to come online here at about 30%. Couple that along with the Kitsune Rush, we're going to be in good standing to be able to have some sushi. Oh, but the Maywall shutting down the Rampage.
Oh, Hadi needed that one to go on off. Now you have to use a lot more ultimates than you would have liked, and especially finding this Annihilation, this already is not looking too good. Kevster managed to force out the main cooldowns, at least from the supports. Looking to isolate Vestola just enough for him to stay alive. He still has this Annihilation up and running, and even then, the damage has already been done. Oblivione weren't able to heal themselves up off the amount of ultimates that SrPeakCheck has managed to commit, and this will be a terrible fight for them to lose, which makes it ever the more important than to continue fighting it out. Dragonblade popped on out. Kevster looking for Golem, but the immortality between the Suzu and the field. You just can't get everything. Everyone manages to stay on their feet, and Kevster probably cursing out all of these cooldowns that SrPeakCheck just have going on a cycle like clockwork. It takes so much for them to get these few eliminations they've managed to get, and even if they do manage to clear this objective, you force the Kitsune Rush on out. Hadi is going absolutely insane, keeping it alive, and somehow, someway, Captain Jack, they're gonna clear it out.
I mean, and beautiful work there by Hadi and Funny Astro right there. You saw as Fi was trying to jump on the objective, Funny Astro says like, nope, and just boops him right on back onto the high ground to be picked off by Hadi in the chaos that was ensuing. But I'm not even for sure Tiny, if SrPeakCheck are going to get a second chance at this objective, somebody's going to have to touch.
Someone's gonna have to get on there because it's now or never. SrPeakCheck, this is the last chance they're gonna get. Overtime does start, but Hottie goes deep into the backlines. Oh, that effect is absolutely wonderful. The point, though, has to be priority number one. Sky, close to this Kitsune rush, should it even be needed right now. Oblivione, they're so close to getting themselves up to match point in this series. The Kitsune rush is just the thing to lead the way, paint the path for them to be able to do it. The point back at their favor. SrPeakCheck. Is there another touch coming in? No, there is not. XO moving up to match point.
That is how you do it. I was about to say, if they held on to that Kitsune rush, that would have been a rough time. As Funny Aster was literally doing everything and then some to just be able to hold the point on their own. But amazing work there from Oblivione to get back to the objective and get things going here. As you can see, folks, things are a little chaotic today. I'm pressing buttons as well as commentary, and with thank you, Kev. Unfortunately, our observer ended up getting sick before we got started today, and finding a sub was rough. So thank you, Kev, for being able to at least get us something in the lobby so that we can kind of see what's going on. But let's recap real quick as they're getting set up for next match what happened previous to this. We didn't get to see a lot of map number 1, which I believe was Antarctic Peninsula, but Oblivione came out 2-1 on top of that. We go into King's Row after a very close control, and when we started turning into Jay Karu's stream, it was like what is going on? At the point that we started tuning in, Oblivione had 0 time on the clock, but had gotten objective Charlie, and SrPeakCheck had a full 4 minutes 51 seconds in the time bank while capping Charlie, which is unheard of to me. Just absolutely mind-blowing that would be a thing that you would be able to achieve on King's Row. Obviously, that map ended up going to SrPeakCheck pretty handedly, but, I mean, Oblivione obviously not out of the woods yet. You know, King's Row was a little rough, but they've got their momentum back after the chaos that ensued on New Junk City. And it looks like we're heading to Esperanza for our next map.
I think it's kind of interesting, the clash of styles that we're seeing from SrPeakCheck and EXA, right? Is, you know, yes, there are some form of rush. Brawl, get up on your face, I'm gonna punch you kind of thing, right? But the biggest change that we're noticing here, especially that I see, is the Mei. The Mei is a problem. It isolates targets such as Hottie, and, you know, when you're cut off from the rest of your team, especially as a Junker Queen who needs a little bit of that support, that mobility that she relies on, you know, there's not much that you're able to do. Vestola has, especially when you looked back at that King's Row map, it essentially was just getting walked on by Vestola because that Ramontra was so up in your face, and there wasn't really anything to stop him. He was in control of the tempo that entire map. Flashpoint, that changed a little. Hottie was able to get himself in there. Everybody else was able to regroup behind them because there was physically more space to move. And that's why I think that Esperanza is going to be a good place for them to play, just because you have more access to these high ground points. Now, is that going to change in terms of the compositions? I think it is entirely possible. Esperanza, yes, you can run a brawl on it, but also dive being a relatively strong part of the meta coming on up just with some of those recent changes that were made. So I'm very curious to say the direction that the series is going to take.
That is true. I'm making a couple of adjustments since we don't have an actual observer in lobby, so don't mind the scoreboard at this very moment. As we head on in, Tiny, what do we see coming out on the table?
We are looking at, you know what, some form of that dive composition. Hottie transitioning over to the Winston, which I do like a lot. You're going to have a lot more focus with that, especially knowing the high caliber that Kevster's Tracer is able to perform on as well. You have these heroes being able to work together. It's going to be great. You just need to be careful that Funny Astro and Sky Reaper are far, far away from Vestola. As long as these guys manage to stay safe, they'll be able to properly support Hadi on his adventures into the backline like we're seeing right now. Has moved over to that back bridge looking for a target to isolate. Hasn't exactly been able to find one so far just because of how close SrPeakCheck have been playing with one another. No pressure entirely on the bot. A lot of this is going to be that matchup of Kevster trying to pull out some form of distraction and confirm these eliminations off of what the dives of Hadi or some of these shots that are coming in from the Shockwave as well. But nobody is really able to do too much. You're in this traditional poke phase that you'll see on a lot of push maps for somebody just to come in and get a final blow. And more often than not, it can entirely come from an ultimate, one of the faster ones you see, like a nano boost or a pulse bomb, which can be coming up relatively shortly here. Hadi continues the pressure onto both the Mortality Field and the Suzu. That's a preparation. Both supports down. Now that is how you swing a fight wide on open. Leave it to Hadi to smack some people around.
Wow, you talk about Angie Monkey. That is one Angie Monkey right there, and beautiful positioning to make sure that the supports were kind of locked in that area. Of course, we could have ended up seeing Sky transitioning out of that area with, I believe that they were originally, or it might have been, oh, I have the teams changed. That's why I'm looking at it weird. Gala, rather, would have been the one to look at there, but nevertheless, wanted to make sure that their other support was able to sustain in that fight and ended up just trapping both of them instead.
Yeah, and like that's kind of what you're looking at here, is that you're forcing players to make these changes to the heroes based off what's happening. Hadi even going over to the Doomfist. That's not going to allow Saw to do anything on the unethical hero of Bastion unless you're Hadi and get stuck in a bit of a pinch maneuver. That one you'll be regretting later on. And, you know, again, I call Bastion unethical because he is the ruiner of any sort of fun in the game of Overwatch. Funny Astro certainly can agree with me right now. SrPeakCheck made a lot of these changes. Yes, they are very good, and Oblivione are going to have to react.
Not exactly for certain what just happened to our logo there. We'll get that fixed up there. But I agree with you that it is a little chaotic as to what exactly is what exactly that Bastion is going to be bringing to the field for sure.
Yeah, the Bastion, I mean, Sana's already nearly got an ultimate coming up, so if that doesn't tell you how much he did in the last fight, I don't really know what does. Oblivione right now, they're looking to come back in on the re-engage. Shockwave has an overclock in hand, but needs to get away from Vestola. Gets so close to them, Sana easily chucks in a nade, and Vi continues the run from the previous round. And Oblivione, as good as they are as individuals, they're struggling to come in together as a team in its final moments, and it's going to end up costing them this first checkpoint.
Yeah, definitely a very unfortunate position for them to be in. Nevertheless, they're they've established themselves in a very good position to be able to keep things going. The big issue is going to be trying to shut down this push so that they can be able to get past that butt scratch point once again.
Yeah, I mean, the robot already has that checkpoint out. Somebody has got to smack a band-aid on this because Oblivione, they are bleeding out right now. SrPeakCheck, that's just the artillery strike coming out. They still have 3 more ultimates to sit on, and EXO are not even close to having a good position to re-engage with. They're going to give up so much space and time. It's now looking to, actually closer to 3 fights that you're going to have to win consecutively just to try to meet the progress where SrPeakCheck currently is. So now has to be the time for them to strike Nano Boost out onto Hadi. He's going to have so much more sustain to be able to work with. It forces the Blizzard. Everyone manages to stay alive, at least for now. Heavy investment for Oblivione, but a very necessary one to get that momentum turned back into their favor.
That is true. Beautiful cleanup there from Oblivione, but remember, they are still struggling when it comes to momentum and position right now. Almost 60 meters difference between these two teams right now, and half of your time is already gone. You got to be able to get those early picks on the support line of SrPeakCheck so that you can continue to keep that bot moving in your favor.
Yeah, they're going to be able to you try to ride the wave of this one, you're looking at a sound barrier and a dragon blade coming out. Both of those are nice. Eventually, there's not a direct counter to this dragon blade unless Pistola was able to stack him up in that flux. And, you know, getting that early pickoff, that's both the supports down. Not having to invest more than this would be wonderful. You're expecting the trade of the sound barrier out for that gravitic flux. So EXO being able to clean up in the long run is going to be absolutely amazing for them, especially holding on to the resources they currently have.
And Sana doing an incredible job. Oh, okay, Fi.
Fi! Oh, no. That's bad.
I mean, it's bad, but I mean, very good work for Sana there to be able to just keep the sustain on the objective. It looks like they might still end up getting the butt scratch here in the final moments. Yeah. Maybe? No, they have to pull back. They're not able to finalize that butt scratch just yet, just due to the pressure that's being put on them from Ghost. But it looks like with the team back together, they can re-engage and lock that in.
They're able to get that locked on down, which is great for them. Oblivione, it looked a little dicey after they lost Hottie and Funny Astro there, so them being able to have these fast heroes to regroup, increased uptime in fights is great, because now they can continue to move on in. Hottie is the Meteor Strike in the back, where Kevster is just trying to keep this bot on the move. Sana's getting a little sneaky with it, Captain Jack, and, you know, even throughout that time, you don't have Kevster in the fight, and that just gives more opportunities for SrPeakCheck to come in and strike. Sana persists to be an issue in the backline, and, you know, Sky, as much as Funny Astro can try to protect, Funny Astro is with Hottie the majority of the time, leaving Sky alone for Sana to come in and deal with them.
Yeah, and I mean, the other aspect of this is that Sana is just playing a little bit of tug of war with the bot right now, not even really investing in terms of like getting eliminations or anything, but pulling the bot out of position in a way that the bot has to recover ground, even if it only takes a couple seconds. In game modes like this, that makes all the difference. But with Sana finally down, maybe Oblivione can find some momentum.
I mean, you say that, but look what direction the robots march in. SrPeakCheck, they're going to get this all the way back to their barrier and continue to have that push going. So EXO in a bit of a deja vu situation where you're banking on the Shockwave overclock to come up and get you back into it. But if Shockwave falls before it even happens, I mean, Sana's already back. It doesn't even matter if that original pickoff happens. SrPeakCheck, they have this Blizzard to come on out, turn everyone into a popsicle, and start to round this final corner. And, you know, that's got to be on to Funny Astro here to try to keep them alive. The sound barrier has got to do so much. You need to make the decisions countering out the flux, the blizzard. There's no way that it's going to be able to do both in this exact situation. And now, especially with Kevster, needs to come up into the backline. Shockwave's overclock is getting a whole lot of nothing between Sana and Pistola, keeping him in check. There's no option. There's nothing that he is able to do in this scenario. So SrPeakCheck are continuing to march on forward. The few eliminations that EXO managed to get slow the progress just enough. But Captain Jack, I'm looking at that time bank, and I fear for their ability to make this full turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just coming down to the shave time on the clock, and 5 with these icicles has just been absolutely insane. I'm actually a little surprised thinking of the heroes that we typically see played into a Sigma. The Doom is great, but your ability to kind of protect yourself and sustain can be a little difficult. Seeing them swap over to a Junker Queen might provide a little bit more sustainability, as well as just positioning at the objective to kind of prevent players from getting in the way.
I mean, they want to get up there. The frames are coming through the net onto Hottie. Perfect timing to continue this disruption phase that he's been doing all so well. This splits the tension between Hottie and Kevster, so as long as one of them is alive and doing something, it has to be enough for them to work with. Fi still hitting these icicles. I mean, this simply should not be allowed. The checkpoint will be captured, so Oblivione, yes, they're going to get closer spawns, but you need to be worried about another touch coming on in 5 seconds on the clock. Is anyone even going to be able to get there? Shockwave took such a long rotation. Hottie is able to snag it on. Overtime has commenced, and we need to figure out where the next fight is going to take place. SrPeakCheck easily had the ultimate advantage here. At least they did. That whiff from Sana gives even more opportunity for EXO to turn this around. Uphill battle, nonetheless. Sound barrier initiated just to keep Hottie on his feet. The blizzard, the gravitic flux, everything coming on in. The dodge, yes, that's certainly going to help. Pistola coming up with nothing. The counterplay from EXO is absolutely insane. If the supports aren't being pulled out from under them, Sauna continues to be an issue. Shockwave finally put the nail in the coffin and succeeds to grab one more. He's trying to be the hero for his team, but the support is lacking. There's nothing else that he can do. Leaving it up to Kevster against a rallied Brig. A scary sight to have to face at this checkpoint. And Oblivione, they're staggering, they're beaten, and they're bruised. But somehow, they're still on this payload. They're continuing to fight it on through. And Captain Jack, we're still going.
I truly don't know how, but that's why I'm not the competitive Overwatch players that these folks are. To be able to turn it around so insanely, Hottie, Shockwave, and Proper finding themselves so low in so many moments, it's just been absolutely insane to know that they are continuing to go. I'm just asking that please let this not be the Overwatch curse of the C9 in the last moment.
It might not come to that. Look how scrappy that this fight is already getting. Soundy Astro's second sound barrier of the day, and it is a fat one for them to be able to push off of. That's just what EXO needed to continue that fight on up. The only thing that SrPeakCheck have to work with are these recent swaps and the overextension of Hottie X Oblivione. Critical error. Is this something that they're going to be able to recover from? They're taking a 4v5, and it's not going to be a fun one at all, especially with Festola returning to this Junker Queen. You have to be terrified for your own life right now. Vi comes back on the actual aiming hero. It's more blue in the kill feed than red. Captain Jack, the miracle run, seems to be coming down to an end. Ex Oblivione, they made it so close. Yet they're going to stand just a few meters shy of reaching that mark, and we're going to a map 5.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to start off the Flash Ops playoffs, Tiny. It is just absolutely insane seeing these two teams go back and forth, but again, I really feel it comes down to the hero picks that we were seeing there. I mean, the Doomfist just, until the very end there, wasn't really finding the value that you would have liked to have seen against a Sigma. I would have loved to have seen them swap over to maybe a Junker Queen, or maybe even go Sigma for Sigma in trying to just provide a little bit of additional protection for the team, at least from the front line, because that was really kind of what was taken down Funny Astro and Sky in the backline. Was not only the pressure that was coming in from Sauna just being a nuisance in the backline as well, but also just those shots from Bastola every now and again. Those gravitic orbs do a little bit of AoE, so if you're able to get it in just the right spot, it really can make all the difference. But we're heading to a map 5, which I believe means we are heading to Escort, if my map order is correct. Yep. So if you were EXO, where do we take it, Tiny?
Honestly, that's a great question. You're looking at a team in SrPeakCheck that has very strong on these Sigma poke compositions. They can run this rush, they can run the dive. There isn't necessarily a weakness that you can find, and it's seriously going to come down to what is EXO's strength, what has worked for them so far. And you know, they've tried a couple things. Like you said, seeing Hottie onto this Doomfist, it wasn't a bad look, but it wasn't something that players such as Sky could necessarily enjoy. You're giving up this protection level in the front line, allowing players just to walk into the back, which makes it seem sloppy. It makes it seem uncoordinated, which if you're not getting those even trades out, while that might not exactly be the case, you're simply not getting value. You're making the battle harder for yourself than it actually has to be. So I want to see them pick a map 5 where it's going to be the most comfortable for them. There's 4 maps within that pool for them to work with. Dorado, I believe, is going to be one of them, and the selection for today. Now, Captain Jack, what does this tell you about where EXO want to take this.
I mean, it tells me that EXO wants to continue playing that dive. Dorado is definitely one of the stronger places that you can utilize kind of the various high ground positionings to be able to kind of dive in and out of the action. We might be seeing Hottie swapping back over to that Winston, which I feel will get a lot. Yeah, we do love seeing the Winston, and it's going to get a lot more value on a map like Dorado just because of how many close corners and tight corridors that you can really kind of utilize that Tesla cannon to just burr everybody down. There also is just so much utility in a map such as Dorado versus going to like Watchpoint Gibraltar or something like that, just because Watchpoint is the go-to dive map that everyone practices. So if you go to something that's maybe a little bit more obscure, a little bit less played, maybe you can provide yourself a little bit more of an advantage. And, you know, one way or another, one of these teams are going to be continuing on in the winner's bracket, and one of them is going to be heading to the lower bracket to see if they can take the long way around.
And here's the interesting thing about that, right? Is within the Swiss stage, there's one team that actually really kind of pushed the limits here, right? Oblivione, they got stomped when they played SrPeakCheck within that Swiss stage. And, you know, they managed to take a map. Sure, that's something, but at the end of the day, you are the ones who ended up losing. You could argue that's because maybe you didn't have your A roster, but guess what? This is your A roster. Everybody has been paying attention to the Flash Ops community knows how good that this team is. Everybody expects them to come out and win. And if for some reason they end up losing in this first round, a lot of that confidence goes away. They've had this big title put on their shoulders. A lot of this pressure is going to start weighing down on them. They've made it to this map 5. They're all pros here. They have experience in these types of situations. So you expect them to come out on top. You expect them to have this level-headed mindset heading on into it. And, you know, you really want to see it. I want to see this level of team coordination that we have from the past, and it's just going to depend. Are they going to be able to stay together? How are they going to choose to take these battles? Are they going to focus on trying to keep Sky alive? Are they going to go for just these countering out trades? That's a decision that they need to make early on and go ahead to stick with it as we roll out into Dorado. You made a very interesting point when you said that, you know, Gibraltar, yes, that's the dive of all dive maps. Dorado is up there for certain, but it allows for a bit more flexibility, which is something that EXO wants to work with. So far, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen a mirror matchup at all, or even a similar sort of style so far. So the fact that they're picking this map proves that they want to keep that up, right? They want to continue to have that little bit of variance, which both can be their best friend and their greatest weakness.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the difficult positions that they kind of find themselves in right now, Tiny, is that, especially when you're playing against players of your skill level at this high of a caliber, it's very difficult to kind of catch them off guard, because typically at this point, if you are the best of the best, you are kind of ready for anything. So I think right now they're just trying to find something that may not necessarily be more of a haha, we got you. Maybe it's more of a, you know, we play a lot of, we scrim a lot of Dorado, we practice here, we know it like the back of our hand, like everyone goes to watch point. Maybe we'll have some kind of advantage by going to a map that is really kind of more of a comfort pick for us and a little less played in the community.
You know what? I predicted it. I just want to say, I started this day sitting in Dorado. They just wanted to come and say hi to me. I'm telling you, I predicted this. I knew this was happening before the game even started, because I totally thought this would go to a map 5. And actually, that is serious. I did expect this to go to a map 5. SrPeakCheck is arguably the second strongest roster, at least in my opinion, within this series. And you know, you look at the Flash Ops, and you've got to be saying through that Swiss stage, EXO, they squeaked in at the 8th seed, whereas SrPeakCheck, they're number 1. So you got to be saying, you see this first matchup coming up, and they're kind of like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way that this is what actually happened. This is probably two of the top teams that we very likely could see rematching later on down the line. But in what format will that actually be? Well, we're going to find out. This 5th and final map of the quarterfinals is going to give us all of that information. EXO, I believe, will be starting out on the attack. SrPeakCheck will be setting that bar on the defense here. And by the looks of it, they're sticking with that poke comp. Pistola on the Sigma, one of his strongest heroes, comboed up, the Widowmaker, the Tracer. This is going to be a whole ball of death that Oblivione, they're going to have to deal with. Where is their focus fire going to be? Are you focusing on the dives through the top? Are you going to try to commit to that Brigitte to keep Sky alive? These are the things that we need to be watching out for on this map.
Yeah, I think it's really going to be coming down to that positioning. I love seeing Kevster coming out on the Symmetra to kind of help the supports be able to get onto that high ground with Hottie to start things off. We're probably going to see them quickly swap over to the Tracer, and they're going to be kind of the cart pusher to keep things going. So it's really going to be all about making sure that that positioning is exactly where they need it to be. And with Sana already dipping, saying, peace, I'm out of here.
Nope. Nope. Hey, it was worth a shot. I like that strat from Oblivione. Had the chance to get a pick off, couldn't land the shots, but hey, worst case scenario, you're on the high ground now, and there's nothing really that your opponents can do about that. So SrPeakCheck, now that they know what's being thrown at them, they're gonna have to see how they end up reacting. They're running a Zenyatta instead of a Brigitte, so either it's pop goes the bunkie or bye-bye, you're tickling the Zenyatta to death. So, you know, that's going to be on to them. How well are they going to react from the dive? Hottie sees them all kind of corralled into the corner. Nobody is exactly pressuring the payload at this point, which makes it difficult. The shot's coming in. That's a 2 for SrPeakCheck. The high ground control still heavily in their favor. Them having the Sigma here, you can't underestimate the presence that Pistola has.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, especially on a map like Dorado, you have to have those multiple, like that multi-prong attack, essentially. As easy as it would be for Hottie to just kind of get in the back line and just be an absolute nuisance to the supports of SrPeakCheck, you gotta have that additional DPS, especially in Overwatch 2, to kind of give that little extra damage to keep things going. As we see now with Kevster on their tail, they're able to finalize, or at least get very close to finalizing, some eliminations.
Even if they're not getting the eliminations, though, what they've managed to do is push SrPeakCheck back. You're no longer as worried about this Widowmaker on the high ground. Hottie is going to make Pistola drop on down. So you're now fighting at this bridge. You have more angles for both Shockwave and Kevster to be able to work with, assuming they're managing to find them. Shockwave is under a ton of pressure from Son. Has to try to get into Son. 9 HP to spare. Can he make it yet? He'll be able to squeak back in, but no Widow and no Ana now for Oblivione. This choke point is going to be the most difficult for them to work with. They haven't had many of these big resources to be able to work off of yet, and we're already over half of our way through this attack, and Sano continues to tear them apart.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised that we're not seeing some swaps over to like a Sombra. I know that with the recent adjustments of some of the heroes going into Season 8, that things aren't maybe as great, but whoa!
Whoa, Hottie, all right. Known for the Reinhardt. Hey, what's the difference between a fist and a hammer? I don't quite see one at all. Hottie coming up big, opening the space once again when EXO needed the most. Breaking through this choke is arguably the most difficult part of this first point of Dorado. So the fact that they're managing to move through here, yes, there will be another touch potential coming on in with a ton of ultimates, but Oblivione at least have some form of momentum to be able to work with, especially if Shockwave decides to push up a bit, deny any potential touches. But you know what, SrPeakCheck, they're committing. That's a Transcendence onto the cart, mind you, just to get this fight started. So they're going to have everyone else settle back in. That's 4 ultimates on the board. Oblivione, they're going to try to weather the storm. Extra rally armor coming into play. Shockwave, though, in a ton of trouble. The sights get canceled out. Scala, that's so incredibly aggressive. So now that threat is out in the back. Ghost has to go down here. Hottie needs to find some sort of elimination. Funny Astro, Kevster, and Hottie working together. The 3 Musketeers, honestly, keeping this one up and running. That's the point on capture, just narrowly. EXO squeaks through.
I mean, that was an incredible play there by EXO to keep things going, but I really think a lot of it ended up coming down to to Gala going after Shockwave. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world as Zenyatta to go after someone like a Widowmaker because you have that long distance capability with your orbs, but literally getting out of position to try to chase them down is not exactly what you want to do as a Zenyatta, especially when it's going to take you that much longer to get back in position.
Whoa, boy. Like, that's the thing, though, is that Shockwave is under so much pressure. That's Pistola Foley committing on to the dive there, knowing how much of a threat he is. Real Lose is meant for it, but at least Cookie can land that shot that matters. So at the end of the day, the task has been accomplished except for SrPeakCheck. Well, guess what? You don't have a tank, and how are you going to protect the rest of the team? Well, I can tell you the answer to that. You don't. Hottie, Primal up once again. Moving on to Cookie, continuing to pummel him down into the backside, forcing them all onto Carton trades, even Stevens, until Funny Astro comes back in on this Brigida. Shockwave returns, and the payload continues its roll.
Hottie definitely living up to the Furious George momentum here when it comes to the absolute plays that continue to break these choke points open. As we see Vistola now back in mech, ready to go again. We're looking at a potential self-destruct coming up here that really could clear the field, but I think that Anchi is going to do just enough to be able to keep them at bay.
Go switching over to the Ana. Yeah, that was a great swap for them to be able to work with, but you gotta be able to land some more of these cooldowns and try to keep their Widowmaker alive. Kevster has been finding Cookie more often than not, and that's a bit of an issue, especially when SrPeakCheck are on the brink of losing another objective coming on up. Funny Astro running wild on the payload. Might as well be the second tank for their team as EXO are starting to recover bit by bit to continue their run here on Dorado and make their chances of winning even greater.
Got me feeling like we're playing like a pseudo or returning to Overwatch 1, which is funny because I actually watched a watched a match earlier this week of like a workshop code that took us back to Overwatch 1, and let me tell you, as a caster, that was no more 6 heroes. I'm glad we swapped. That was way busier than I was willing to admit at the time. But as we go ahead and see this rotation in, beautiful work here from Shockwave with the sights out, looking for those backline picks.
Yeah, has a nice angle to work off of. Nobody knows that he's there! But Gala, that's literally a tank. I'm telling you, I should not be able to take that headshot. Oh, SrPeakCheck. Yeah, you're gonna keep your Brig alive. Can't say the same for Sada, though. Loses that 1v1 down to Kevster, and no one's looking at Shockwave right now. I mean, this is just free for the Widowmaker. And between that, you got Hottie jumping up and down. Now with a nano boost on him. I mean, this is rough. SrPeakCheck have just been getting their feet knocked out from under them this entire time. Sana eventually will get that contest coming through. And SrPeakCheck, though, the payload's so close. It is so gosh dang close to getting that full completion right now. And they have to find something. That support's going down. Finally, some stable ground for them to be able to stand back up on at a much needed point.
Yeah, with only 30 seconds remaining on the clock, seeing Shockwave and Cookie now swapping over to the Sojourns. Going to be providing a lot more pressure, especially from that high ground onto Hottie, because it's very similar to the Widowmaker one-shot. Shockwave and Cookie just need to make sure that their railguns are fully charged, and it's going to provide their ability to just be able to melt these tanks. But the only one that can really eat that damage is Vistola, so we'll have to see how this turns out as overtime gets ready to take away.
Yeah, you have to be able to get onto this payload right now. Oblivione, you're sitting on another Primal Rage from Hottie. Will he be the hero that EXO needs right now? He has to, right? You're getting the touch onto the payload. You know that you're going to have all of this extra sustain to be able to work with. EXO, they're playing this for the long game. They know that's exactly what's going to happen. And a great pick to start it off. Ghost 91 going down.
There we go.
He's with a similar fate. Here comes the angry Munkers. Hottie swinging, bashing, and punching his way through SrPeakCheck. Well, they're getting themselves checked right now because this payload is going to get close to that endpoint. Vistola gets the D-back. That's absolutely devastating. You just leave him to suffer as a BB Diva can go back, swap this one out, but and they have to get the full touch on through. Kevster holding on to a pulse bomb, looking for that time to strike the Bionade down into the back. That is a wonderful corner. Nala shall fall. Kevster coming up big here in the final moments. Oblivione, they're so close to getting these last couple meters to pull on through. Kevster, everything going his way in the kill feed, and finally gaining these little extra points they need. And Captain Jack, suddenly, this one is looking winnable.
I mean, drawing that line in the sand, especially on Escort, worst case scenario, you get yourself another minute on the clock. Which I think is a great position to be in. I gotta say, really impressed. I think Hottie had been calling up Juggle God in the breaks between to get some juggling practice in with the way that they're just slapping everybody around with these primal rages. But it's really going to be more about sustainability here as they head on to the defense. It took quite a bit for them to be able to push through Objective Alpha, and something tells me that SrPeakCheck is not going to be taking it as lightly, especially as we're seeing Sauna playing around with coming out on this Echo. Not only does that provide a lot more damage in your back pocket to dive in with your diva, but it also provides so much more sustainability and potential by now having a diva and Winston on your side of the field to be able to burr down anyone that is in your way. So it's going to have to be up to Proper and Shockwave to really be, or sorry, to Kevster and Shockwave. See, I knew it was gonna get me eventually. Everybody's making fun of us casters because we keep saying Proper. It's like, well, no, we're used to seeing what's on screen.
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, I'm amazed that we've actually been pretty darn good about it.
We made it really far, so you know, I'll pat on the back for us for that one. But nevertheless, it's gonna be up to them to make sure to keep Sauna in check and hopefully get them off this Echo sooner than later.
Yeah, Sauna is going to be a major issue here. Nobody directly available to counter him out. Kevster can do a somewhat job at that, but it's not really where you want to have to commit your Tracer onto. So EXO, I'm going to be playing these high grounds, jumping back and forth. A little bit of leapfrog coming on out. Vistola, of course, on the diva, has the ability to kind of help burst Hottie on down, and, you know, that is going to force him back a little bit more. You know, as part of SrPeakCheck, I give them credit. They're playing it slow, waiting for Sauna to come up with a pick. And that's the thing. If you're not going to deal with the assassin in the sky as well, all of you are just flat out dead, just like that. Now, this is going to be a reevaluation here for Oblivione. Hottie is going to have a rough time into this comp.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily Hottie's going to have a rough time, but they have to deal with Sauna. Sauna already up to 70% on their ultimate. Vistola not that much further behind, and Ghost almost has the nano ready to go as well. Somebody has got to take care of this Echo, because right now... Okay, Sky.
There you go. Welcome. All right, somebody had to do it.
Somebody has to do it.
Do it myself. Sky pulled it out, and you know that's great for them. But you still gotta get chest to fail. And Hottie is antied, and ooh, this healing is not Sky. My goodness gracious, the nano, the nade, oh. Everything pumped into Hottie. That is how important that EXO know keeping their tank alive is, because look who has a good old primal rage. SrPeakCheck, you better run, because this monkey is a bit scary to look at. The sleep dart certainly gonna put him to a little bit, somewhat, at least I would say, until Tony Astro gets run down. Shockwave isn't gonna be going up there. Who even knows Sauna just chilling up on the high ground, and SrPeakCheck, they're looking to clean, take this one on forward. Sauna continuing to be priority number one here. I mean, he's been doing everything for EXO right now.
Yeah, and it looks like they are going to finally force Sauna off of that Echo. Going to be going over to the Tracer as Shockwave and Cookie swap on over to the Widowmakers. So going to be seeing a repeat of what we saw during the attack here on Objective Bravo. But honestly, I'm a little... Oh, got to pause on the field.
Oh, pause on the field. Okie dokie.
All right.
Well, tactical pause.
Tactical pause.
And probably not a tactical pause. At least I would like to hope, considering competitive integrity and whatnot. But hey,
Well,
EXO will take that nonetheless. It's a decent time for
back
them
in.
to go ahead and regroup. And hey, we're straight back into the game. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain what happened. You know, we appreciate that ability to pause on disconnect, but sometimes those disconnects are just, you know, brief blips. So good to see that nobody ended up losing ultimate charge or anything like that. As we see Shockwave just looking for a positioning to get in here. Kevster gonna have to pull back due to that ante.
It's gonna back off just a little bit. And is that really going to do a whole much? Not really. SrPeakCheck, they're around this first corner, and Shockwave winning that Widow duel, a much needed factor, because now there's nobody to contest that Widowmaker necessarily, unless Sauna decides to get himself up there, which he's gonna go ahead and do. But if you do that, who's contesting? Kevster, as the rally shut down immediately, followed by the Nanoboost double support ultimates committed, 0 to come of it.
So I have to ask, if a Brig gets pulse bombed immediately after popping it, would that be considered an Ajax for a Brigitte? I feel like that's an Ajax for a Brigitte, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe we'll just call it, maybe we'll just call it a Gala at this point in time.
Oh, that's hard.
I'm just saying, you saw the pulse bomb coming, you saw the writing on the wall. It's, I've definitely been in that position where I've popped one too many ultimates at the wrong time, but that's gonna cost you. That's gonna hurt a lot, especially pushing into this. You do have 2 minutes, so you can earn them back up again, but do you want to waste that time, especially in a space where you're gonna have a lot more control of the objective?
Shockwave! My goodness! I mean, they're not wasting any time at all. Hottie going straight back into the backline. Gala even got off the Brig. Apparently, was a little upset after that pulse bump. So the Zenyatta coming out. Yes, that's great, but it's just in the die part. You need to be on this Brig. You have to be on the Brig. You just can't. It's a must pick.
Yeah. I was a little questioning that. Yeah, I was questioning that Zenyatta pick myself. I mean, you could use it to put a little bit more pressure onto a Shockwave and provide some more advantages for Vastola diving in on their back line, but I mean, you're providing no protection for Ghost on this Ana, and you gotta keep your Ana alive if you want to be able to keep pushing your way forward. As we see Kevster and the rest of the team on this high ground, it looks like SrPeakCheck going for the rotation to the left.
The pulse bomb's coming out. No, Kevster didn't use it. Oh, I feel pain on that one. Could have been great, but we shall never know. That was waiting for a later opportunity to pull that one out on just a little bit under a minute remaining for SrPeakCheck to continue this push on forwards. And ever since we've gotten to the second objective, they have not been able to break through this front wall. That's been Hottie to come near. Shockwave it all! He's so far away! Hitting these shots. That's Gala. You need your Brig to be alive of all of the heroes that you have, and it's just terrible to have to work with that SrPeakCheck. Yes, they managed to get a couple trades back out, and I mean, EXO, they're still hanging around, and they're going to continue to do so unless they get off the court. That's 0.03 meters on the payload, and they're going to get off. That's it. SrPeakCheck squeak on through despite the lovely opening eliminations. It's not enough for EXO to hold the point.
Yeah, it really just came down to the massive anti-nade that kind of shut Hottie down as they were diving in. It was a beautiful pick on Gala to start, but without your tank to really continue putting on that pressure, Vastola just had free reign. And now with the self-destruct online, Cookie already earning up their overclock, things are going to be difficult for the next minute and a half.
What are you really looking at right now for Oblivione? You got the rally coming on up. That's if Bunny Astro stays alive. All right, proper peel coming on in. You love to see it. Now this overclock a little bit scarier. That one went on down relatively quickly. The Bionade can't exactly say the same for. This has seriously become a one-fight territory almost. Now for SrPeakCheck, continuing that push. A minute left on the clock for them to work with 3 ultimates. It's just going to matter who is going to strike first. The Nanoboosts are going to be the tail of this fight. We're already going to see Skies go on to Hottie, put the pressure up into the high ground, looking at the DPS. Both of them! Massive coordination. Sky saw the opportunity. Hottie jumped on it, and XO are going to push this down. One more battle to push themselves forwards in the winner's bracket.
I was watching Sky that whole time.
Dagger.
It was Nano Monkey, Nano Brig, Nano Monkey, Nano Brig, and as soon as Pistola dove in onto Funny Astro, I was like, all right, Nano Monkey, not getting my ultimate eaten today, and it was a very good job nonetheless. They have that primal ready to go, but that
Rally and Nano are forced to spawn! Captain Jack, those are two of the big tools. Is the touch even
Yep.
going to come through this right? Oblivione, they pushed them so far. Hottie is blocking them off at the choke point. Somebody has to get on the payload. Yes, the touch is going to be there. And it is a scattered SrPeakCheck. Over half of them are fighting back nearly in the spawns. The payload, though, has to be scuffed. Sky gets the first elimination, hopefully, of many for Oblivione, and likely, since the overclock is coming on out, Pistola, DMX self-destruct onto the point. And it's gonna get shot. It's a triple kill on through Oblivione, squeak it out in the end, push themselves forwards to the winner's bracket.
Woo-wee! What a way to end that match. I mean, and of course, Kevster. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Shockwave might have earned play with that one, but I mean, this is really what solidified them. Because look at how close it was. Maybe about 20 meters difference in terms of being able to capture that final bit of the objective is all that made the difference here on Dorado. And just, oh my goodness. That was, I agree, that was unfortunate, but I feel that they would have lost someone if the Nano didn't get invested. I saw a repeat of Gala getting eaten by that pulse bomb again. And I think that it really just came down. I think it really just came down to their Ana player saying, "Nah, we can't have that. Like we just we can't lose you already before we go back in again." And unfortunately, just due to timing, it was, they didn't swap to any speedy characters because of all the ultimates that they had available to them, and it shook out the way that they did. Thankfully, they're not out just yet, just heading to the lower bracket. But for Oblivione, they're heading on to the semifinals, and if I were 8 seed, I'd be feeling pretty pumped about that.
Oh, absolutely. And as I said before, these two teams, I can see them meeting again. I can totally see SrPeakCheck running through this lower bracket and finding a way to make it to the Grands once again. And, I'll live for that day. But for now, it will be Oblivione moving on to those winners for semis to face off against RC 2018, who actually squeaked out a win over Team Peps 3-2. Fun fact for anyone who's been paying attention to this bracket, not a single one of these games today have been a sweep. We've had two map 5s and 2 map 4s coming out. These squads, they are the closest, they are the best that you're gonna find in the EMEA scene, which makes us ever the more enthusiastic for what is still yet to come. The upper bracket semifinals coming your way just after this short break. Stay tuned for Oblivione versus RC 2018.